A tree is known by its fruit. So if you want to examine fruit, go to the root. Who is the root of Planned Parenthood? I mean, besides Satan. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Who was the agent of darkness who founded Planned Parenthood? And I say that with surgical precision for those of you from the People for the American Way and Right Wing Watch and all the rest of you. Margaret Sanger, the tool of the hot place. We're going to look at her today. Of course, President Obama praised Margaret Sanger, who hated black people. That part of it is just almost bizarre to me. It's just almost bizarre. People want to say that certain righteous Republican African Americans are Uncle Toms. Well, I think that moniker might be a little bit misplaced, especially when it comes to people praising an avowed racist who wanted to kill African American children. But I digress. We're going to look at Margaret Sanger today using just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. And then you decide, should this group receive money from us?
Lamb of God, you take away the sins of the world. Have mercy on us.
Like a dark Joan of Arc, she flung herself headlong into battle against the church, against the covenant of marriage, against the laws of God himself. Hundreds of millions of men, women, and children have lived and died in the world that was created by her vision. I'm speaking of Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. We're going to focus on her today. Welcome, friend, to the broadcast. If you did not see yesterday's show, go to voiceofresistance.com. You will be able to find that program and an entire series that involves Planned Parenthood, President Obama, the Negro Project, as Planned Parenthood used to call it, and the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger. President Obama became the first sitting president to address a Planned Parenthood conference. It is a mark of shame and disgrace that he will bear into eternity. He rightly said the following. Lane, play this clip.
It's been nearly 100 years since the first health clinic of what later would become Planned Parenthood opened its doors to women in Brooklyn. And for nearly a century now, one core principle has guided everything all of you do: that women should be allowed to make their own decisions about their own health.
I think that's about the only thing he got right. That it was just about 100 years ago that Planned Parenthood's first birth control clinic was opened. What the president did not mention was that the clinic was opened by Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. We're going to take the better part of this show to look at some of the elements of her life, to dabble a little bit in some of her writings. There are very few people in the last 100 years who have impacted the entire world the way that this woman has. She was at war with the church, at war with the laws of God, mocked the priesthood and ministers, both evangelical and Catholic. She called for fornication, orgies, The whole 9 yards, people. This is who we're dealing with. Now, if you've got small children in the room, I suggest you have them leave for the duration of this program or record the show and watch it later, because there are some issues that I'm going to discuss, disgusting issues that we will discuss, that probably are not fit for young ears. This that I'm about to read was written by her in 1914 and released in a publication that she used to write called The Rebel Woman. She actually was arrested for some of her writings. They were considered lewd and lascivious, and she fled the country. More on that in a minute. First, let me read to you a little bit so you get a feel for who we're dealing with. That there exists in all nature an attraction which takes place between particles of bodies and unites to form a chemical compound is not doubted. This same attraction exists in men and women and will, unconsciously perhaps, cause them to seek a mate, just as other organisms do. In other words, men and women are animals, and sometimes there's an animal attraction which produces a chemical reaction and causes people to come together. She outlines that a little clearer as this goes on. Priests and marriage laws have no power or control over this attraction, nor can they make desirable a union where this attraction does not exist. So, if you're in a marriage, or even considering one, and this chemical, animal attraction does not exist that desires you to find this person as a mate, okay, we're talking an animal attraction here, physical in nature, sexual in nature, then no priest, no marriage law has any bearing on that. Can you see where this is headed? Marriage laws abrogate the freedom of women by enforcing upon her a continuous sexual slavery and a compulsory motherhood. Now we're getting to the core of the issue. Because a woman is obligated with her marriage vows to only have sexual relations with one man, and obviously the male with only one woman, then that woman is in sexual slavery. She's not free to have sex with anyone that she wants, with whom she feels this chemical reaction. I continue. Marriage laws have been dictated and dominated by the church, always, and ever upon the unquestionable grounds of the wisdom of the Bible. Here we see an open attack on the scriptures and on the church, who clearly, she understood, clearly provide the foundation for the sacrament and the covenant of marriage. She goes on. A man and a woman who under a natural condition, like she talked about with the chemicals, who under a natural condition avow their love for each other, should be immediately qualified by this to give expression to their love or to perpetuate the race without the necessity of a public declaration. If a man and a woman see each other and say, I love you, well then let's. A reciprocal, spontaneous, voluntary declaration of love and mutual feelings by a man and woman is the expression of nature's desires. Were it not natural, it would not be so. And being natural, it is right. You see, friend, the scriptures talk an awful lot about our senses, and that there are some things that we have an appetite for that are not healthy, that are not right, that are not good, that may even be evil. So she is touching, in fact, on something that is accurate. You see somebody that is attractive, and there is some type of a chemical reaction that happens. But to then jump from that to say, and therefore because there is this natural reaction going on, that a man and a woman should be immediately able to avow their love for each other and have any kind of sex anywhere that they want under any circumstances. And a woman who's married is in slavery to having sex with only one person. And this is against nature. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to give you the sordid details, an overview of the sordid details of her life. And you'll see that she lived out this vision in such a way that makes these words seem tame. This is the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger. I'll be right back. Christians must be involved in government, period. If Christians weren't involved in government, we would not have a United States of America. And there have been brilliant Christian minds over the centuries, such as John Locke, who is called the philosopher of American liberty. He was quoted by Clarence Thomas in his recent dissent on the homosexual marriage decision. If we don't understand John Locke, we don't understand the founding of America. I want to send you this book and my book, The Sword, subtitled The Blessing of Righteous Government and The Overthrow of Tyrants. I want to send you these two books for a gift of whatever you can afford. Pay the $8 shipping and handling, which does not cover our costs, and then give a gift of whatever size you want, and we'll send you these books. If you cannot afford anything but the $8, can't even afford that, write us a note, and we'll send them to you for free. I want you to have these books so that you can be better equipped to fight in the political arena. Come on, order them today. Margaret Sanger, Killer Angel, as Dr. George Grant calls her. She was born in 1879, 10 children in the Catholic family, very poor. She grew up to despise poverty and wanted to do everything in her power to keep the poor from having children. She married at age 22, had 2 sons and a daughter with her husband. He was a fairly successful businessman, and they hung out in socialist circles in New York City. Well, before long, she wearied of the marriage bed with her husband and began to have a series of sordid affairs. Her husband thought, you know, I'm really not into this, and whisked her off to Europe, where the whole family went. After 2 weeks in Europe, she decided she wanted to go back to Greenwich Village and to her hip socialist friends and to her sexual liaisons, and she literally abandoned her husband, took the children back to New York. He pled with her to return. She refused. The marriage ended in divorce, as you can imagine. While she was back in New York, she started handing out her missives called the Rebel Woman, one of which got her arrested. Her daughter, meanwhile, is being neglected to the point where her daughter got pneumonia and died. Okay? This is the type of woman that we're dealing with. By every biblical definition, if you read the Proverbs, by every biblical definition, or ethical definition, Margaret Sanger was a whore. She was a harlot. A floozy is far too kind of a word for her. Well, after she was arrested, she did go back to Europe. She fled this time and spent 13 months there. At that time, she started hanging out with Malthusians and with Havelock Ellis. A Malthusian is somebody who believes that there's a limited number of resources in the world, and therefore we have to reduce the world population. We have to keep people from having babies because there's going to not be enough to go around. So the people that shouldn't have babies are the poor, the unintelligent, Negroes, etc. So she started hanging out with Malthusians and with people in the eugenics movement. As we'll see later, some of them were very closely tied to Hitler. She also had multiple sordid affairs with people like H.G. Wells, Julian Huxley, Havelock Ellis. You might remember some of these names from literature, from your college days. Havelock Ellis was by any Christian definition, a sexual pervert. She was involved in orgies, as I said. After she divorced her first husband, about 10 years later, she recognized the economic value in getting married. And so she married a very wealthy man, a fabulously wealthy man. And the marriage prenuptials that they agreed to was that she would have one wing of the mansion, he would have another. He could not visit her without calling first. He actually had to make an appointment to see his own wife because she insisted on being free to have her male lovers or multiple people coming and going without any intrusion or intervention from her second husband. This is who we're dealing with in the founder of Planned Parenthood. And she wanted American families to be made in that image. When we come back from this break, we're going to read some of her other quotes. They're more along a political nature, more specific about her birth control agenda. And you will see how Planned Parenthood today is reflecting the vision of its godless founder, Margaret Sanger. Thanks to friends like you, we have state-of-the-art cameras and state-of-the-art teleprompters and state-of-the-art gear here in the studio. We have one big need, however. We have not yet been able to upgrade our computers. The computers that we use for a television broadcast or to create a documentary are not like the kind that you can just go buy at Best Buy. They are expensive because it takes so much horsepower to create TV series and or documentaries. So I'm asking you, if you want to see this show grow and you want to see us finish the What Would Muhammad Do series, help us get these computers. 3 computers that we need right now are going to be just shy of $20,000. That's the kind of horsepower that we need. Go to the GoFundMe page you see right there, watch the pilot for What Would Muhammad Do, and if you like the show, give us a gift. Welcome back to the program, friend. I want to issue a small and insignificant but heartfelt challenge to MSNBC, CNN, Fox, the History Channel, any cable network. The data's out there on Margaret Sanger. The data's there. Do a series. Friends, you have to understand that we are being lied to by the omissions of these people. What they are not telling us about Planned Parenthood and about Margaret Sanger. I'm going to read to you from a small section of my book, Accessory to Murder. I wrote this when I was in a prison work camp, the chain gang it used to be called. And by the way, I have had run-ins with Planned Parenthood for decades. Planned Parenthood and the National Organization of Women both sued me and ended up getting my life savings, my home, everything that I ever had. Everything. 6 digits, okay? So I have a long personal history with these God haters, with these baby killers. And they knocked me down and I got back up and I'm still swinging at them. And the day will come when the blight of them will be driven from the earth. We just don't know when. All right. Now this is where, again, if you've got a small child in the room, you need to get this kid out. You heard in the last segment some of Margaret Sanger's personal life. Perverse, sexually illicit. In Ithaca, New York, the Planned Parenthood affiliate there put together a sex education curriculum. Now, before I read to you from this curriculum, play that clip about President Obama saying how great sex education is.
Laws that would cut off access to cancer screenings and end educational programs that help prevent teen pregnancy.
Well, what the president failed to mention is that every study shows that where there is more sex education, there is more pregnancy, there is more sexual activity, there are more sexually transmitted diseases. Now, why is that? Why is that? I'm going to show you. Planned Parenthood had some games that they put together for the teenagers in a high school. Again, if you've got small kids, get rid of them. Game number 1, putting on the condom. Okay? Putting on the condom. And what they did was they had kids wear signs on their chest, hung there with various stages of petting, necking, sexual foreplay, sexual intercourse of every kind of description. There are things here that I can't bring myself to read. All right? They describe every single sexual act that you could imagine. All right? In a public school for high schoolers, 9th, 10th, 11th graders. All right? Now, here's the second game, condom relay race. And in this game, they get one condom lubricated, or this is what the text actually said, or lubricated with plenty of tissues handy, per participant, and several bananas, firm, not ripe. And they would run back and forth in the condom relay race, and the one person, maybe a girl, would hold out the banana, and a boy would put the condom down on it, And then someone would have to unroll it, run back down, and do this again and again. This is with teenagers, okay? With complete descriptive words about all body parts and about all sexual acts. Now, what do you think that does to a young girl or a young boy at 15 or 16 or 17? Can you see that sexual chemical thing happening that she spoke about? Can you see them getting flushed and red in the face and saying, man, maybe I'd like to try this? In other words, you have curiosity, and then you have preoccupation and interest, and then temptation, and then acting out. That's what's going on here, people. This is what Planned Parenthood is. I've got to take a break. When we come back, another quote from President Obama, a little bit more about Margaret Sanger's connection to the Nazis. Don't go away. Friend, this TV show represents a mission. It's to be a voice of resistance to the evil in the land, but also to inspire people like you to take a stand at any level that you might be able to equip you, to inspire you, to challenge you, to give you the rhetorical ammunition that you need. But we still have to pay bills. This program, as you know if you're a regular viewer, we don't spend a lot of time raising money. We don't spend a lot of time saying, oh, you need to buy this and we're going to run. No, we're bringing you a message, but we still have bills that we need to pay. I'm asking you, if you have been blessed by this show, to please go to our website or send a check to the address you see on the screen or call the phone number that you see on the screen and use your credit card and to give $50 or $100 or $500 just to help us meet our normal expenses. And we'll keep bringing you this hard-hitting show. Welcome back, friend. My time is flying away. Play the clip, Lane, if you would, about President Obama praising Planned Parenthood.
There's one thing the past few years have shown. It's that Planned Parenthood is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere today. It's not going anywhere tomorrow.
All right, so there you have it. Planned Parenthood, yesterday, today, and forever. They're going to be here. They're not going anywhere. Well, I beg to differ with that, but the truth is that the reason that Planned Parenthood still exists today in this country, as they do, receiving hundreds of millions of our dollars, we're underwriting all this perversion. We are helping them protect pedophiles and the sex slave trade, which we'll talk about tomorrow. I want to lay the blame somewhere. Somebody has to be responsible for how come they're here. The blame gets laid at the feet of Catholic bishops, evangelical churches, the Republican Party, okay? All of whom pay lip service to sexual fidelity and purity. But when an abortion giant, a criminal syndicate, as you will see, literally involved in the cover-up of sexual crimes against minors, when this organization is receiving hundreds of millions of our dollars, promoting the killing of babies, promoting the sexual perverse deeds that I can't even read about on the air, and you have silence from our shepherds, then what we really have are hirelings. We have people who have surrendered to this demonic organization. Friend, we've got to fight. Contact our legislators and tell them defund these godless enemies of the family. Talk to you tomorrow. Well, friend, I hope that you recognize why I am so vehement in my opposition to Planned Parenthood. The fact that a Planned Parenthood office might do a pap smear and help a young woman that way is really irrelevant, okay? Because the purpose of Planned Parenthood is evil. You could go into a brothel, all right, and get a drink of water. If you're thirsty, the water's going to satisfy your thirst. That's not why the brothel exists, okay? So don't tell me that Planned Parenthood does some good things any more than you would tell me, well, thirsty people do get cups of water in a brothel, all right? Planned Parenthood exists for acts of unrighteousness, of murder, of perversion, of racism. And we must not just do everything we can to defund Planned Parenthood, But to see that this criminal syndicate goes back to hell where it came from, may God hasten the day. Please, God, please forgive us for our inactivity.